For Vendorcredit, I'd like to warmly welcome you to today's webinar. My name is Clara, and I serve as Senior Business Development Manager here at Vendorcredit. Thank you. I can see people's comments. Good evening, Hassan. So at Vendorcredit, one of our greatest strengths is that we listen. We listen to our clients, our partners, and our wider community of stakeholders. And this webinar is the direct result of that. Many of you asked us to host a session that will address the unique opportunities and challenges within the oil and gas sector. And you even sent in questions ahead of time to help shape today's conversation. We're so grateful for that engagement, and we are excited to deliver on it. While our focus today is on the oil and gas sector, we also recognize that the insights we'll be sharing transcend industries. Our guest speaker, Ms. Uwana Utuk, brings a wealth of knowledge and experience that cuts across multiple sectors, offering valuable lessons for anyone who is interested in growth, resilience, and sustainable operations. We are confident that this session will not only answer your pressing questions, but also provide fresh perspectives that you can take back to your businesses and networks. With that, I am delighted to hand things over to our host, Chidera Enegalu, our Business Development Executive, who will guide us through the discussion. I look forward to an engaging and insightful session with you all. Thank you. Chidera, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome once again. Thank you, Clara, for the warm welcome, and we thank you all for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you all with us. My name is Chidera Enegalu, and I will be your host for today's session on behalf of Vendorcredit. I am excited to guide this conversation and ensure we make the most of the insights that will be shared today. Okay? So what we would be doing today, before we get into the heat of the day, I would like to get to know our esteemed participants. You can just, my name is Chidera, like I've said, and I work with the growth unit of Vendorcredit as a business development executive. And I am joining in from Lagos. So I would like you all, our participants, to just put on the chat where you're joining from. Let's get to know each other. I would like to know you. We would like to know you from Vendorcredit. We would like to know who we are interacting with for the day. On the chat, please just drop where you're joining in from. You can just drop the name of your company. You can drop your name, and you can also drop where you're joining from. Let me see. Okay, great. I can see a namesake, Chidera, joining in from Lagos. It's a pleasure to have you. It's a pleasure to have you here. Great to meet you. Please drop in where you're coming from so that we can just get to know each other. Yes, I can see Emmanuel from Edo State. It is a pleasure to have you, Emmanuel. Olainka from Milvian Energy from Lagos State. I can see Daniel from Warri. Great to have you join us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We welcome everyone to this great session. Moses from Lagos State, Flobi Oil and Gas. It's a pleasure to have you. You're welcome once again. Yes, our participants are dialing in, and it's a pleasure to have you all join us. It's a great pleasure to have you all join us. Today is going to be a very insightful day. This webinar is a webinar that's been set up in response to our request from our esteemed participants, from the different participants from all over Nigeria, right? That's why we are seeing different sectors. We are seeing different participants from different parts of Nigeria. We welcome you all. We welcome you all. Great to have you all join us. So now that we are getting to know ourselves, I think it's important that we share what our mission at Vendorcredit is. Our mission is very simple at Vendorcredit. It is to provide and deliver holistic, seamless, embedded, and scalable supply chain solutions to the dynamic companies and marketplaces that have the potential to transform Africa at large. We do this through innovative and tailored supply chain financing. And this helps to support the vendors, suppliers, and corporates across funding seamlessly. Beyond funding, right, beyond financing at Vendorcredit, we believe in creating platforms like this webinar. This is an opportunity for us to meet with stakeholders in the oil and gas industry and in other industries at large, and share knowledge, ask questions, basically how can we improve on our services, how can we know more about the services, how can we know more about the sector, right, and to learn from experts, industry experts across the industry that we are delving into today, which is the oil and gas. So this is part of our commitment to building a stronger and a more resilient supply chain sector across Nigeria and beyond. I mean, when we develop Nigeria, we can as well go into developing Africa, right? They say charity begins from home. Charity begins at home. So you develop Nigeria. From developing Nigeria, you can then move further into developing Africa at large. So this is part of our initiative to building a stronger community. This is a response to our community's request, asking for industry experts to lead us, to show us the way, take us on a great and insightful learning experience in this. So we have today, we're honored to have Ms. Uwana Utuk as our guest speaker. Yes, it's a pleasure to have you, Ms. Uwana Utuk. Ms. Uwana Utuk is an accomplished professional with deep expertise in the oil and gas sector. She has garnered over 18 years experience. I mean, 18 years experience is no beans, right? Like I would say, she has gathered over 18 years experience in a very diverse field. It spans multiple industries. She has built an outstanding reputation for her ability to translate complex sectoral issues into practical, actionable strategies for growth. I would like you all to give it up for Ms. Uwana Utuk on the chat, please. Drop your favorite emoji. Let us welcome Ms. Uwana Utuk to join us today. We are truly privileged to have you with us, and it is an honor for us to have you as our guest speaker, leading us on this insightful. Yes, thank you. Please give it up for Ms. Uwana Utuk. I need to see your emojis. I need you all to react. This is a very interactive session for us today. It's not just a session where I would be talking or our guest speaker would be talking. Is a session where everyone would be impacting, right? So we are sharing knowledge, we are learning from our industry expert, and you're also asking us questions and learning. Thank you. I can see reactions. Thank you. Ms. Uwana, you can see that our participants are ready to receive you. They are eager. Yes, they are very eager to receive you. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Ms. Uwana Utuk. Thank you, Ms. Uwana Utuk. It's a pleasure to have you with us. So, like Clara has said, we received a number of thoughtful questions from our community ahead of this session, right? This was birthed from various requests for our vendors, various requests from key stakeholders in the oil and gas sector. And with that, we will be drawing from those requests, right, as we go along in this session. We would also keep an eye on our live comments, basically, to ensure that it is an interactive session. Whatever questions that our guests whatever questions the participants would be having, we would also, be taking them as time goes on. So this is for us to basically know that as our industry expert would be sharing insights on how we can be key players or be sustainable vendors in this oil and gas industry, we would also be requiring you to drop some questions, and we would be taking them as time goes on. So without further delay, let's let's dive in. Let's get into this. I'm very eager for us to kick in. I'm very eager to hear from Ms. Wanao too. We are all very eager to, to know what insight that she's going to be sharing with us, how she can help lead us into, dive into the sector, dissect the sector, see how we can, go back with extra knowledge. This is knowledge that is free. This is knowledge that would cost a lot, but we are grateful to have you on with us, and we are happy to give back to the community. We're happy to ensure that our community keeps growing, right? And also let you all know that if you are looking for that company, that organization that is giving back to the community, we are there for you. So without wasting any other time, without wasting further time, I think it is time for us to get into this. Ms. Wanautu, thank you for joining us. Let's begin. Let's begin the session.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chidera. Thanks, everyone, for the very warm welcome. So, Chidera, please confirm you can hear me properly.
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay. All right. So today, Chidera started by saying that this session should be interactive, and I would really appreciate if that's the case. And to that extent, please drop your messages. Any questions you have along the way, we'll pick it up. So I assume most of us are already vendors, perhaps in other fields, or maybe even in oil and gas, and just trying to pierce in better, try to understand that terrain better. Chidera has already introduced me. I don't know if there's any need for more, but just for perspective, to say that in the course of my career, which has prominently been oil and gas, I have had the privilege of evaluating maybe over 10,000 vendor what do they call it now? Submissions. And then I know firsthand what is required. We've had to evaluate a number of clients to see which of them is fit for purpose for certain jobs. I've also seen people come in as, right at the beginning, where SMEs were not given so much opportunities, to a point where regulation has now put every one of us in an advantage, at an advantage position, to be able to play within that field. So, so I guess the first question would be, what makes me, how can I become an oil and gas supplier? So that environment is very highly regulated. And while it may seem cumbersome, it is actually very good, because once you can successfully become a supplier in the oil and gas terrain, the tendency is that you'll be able to be a supplier in many others, And the oil and gas industry is very high spend. And so regulation is important then. It means that you have to posture properly to be able to participate in that field. So if I have to put structure to it, what does it mean? Okay, so let's say I wake up today and I say I have the competency to be a vendor. Perhaps I've even been a vendor in other fields. How do I now delve in? I think the first thing is to make sure that there is standard lists that you should follow. Many companies have their own, but there is a general expectation. The first thing with being a vendor, and by vendor we mean suppliers, is that you want to have been registered in the CSC, under the CSC, that's the Corporate Affairs Commission in Nigeria. Right, so that's first step. If you have an idea, brilliant, and all of that, you start from there. You want to be registered, and so we would typically expect to see your CSC certification. And again, notice that I said it was a very high spend, very high risk, high yield too kind of company and kind of sector. So you want to be sure that the person you are dealing with is a real person, and is a company. So a company or a business name, there are limitations to business names. It also has its advantages, but first thing is you have your certification, your CSC certification, and it doesn't end there. You'll find that they'll ask you for your MEMAT, that's the memorandums and articles of association. And this is just because they want to see, what did you say you can do? in which case what we call objects. What did you say you can do? What capacity did you say you have? And these days, all these regulatory bodies have stepped up to ask for. So for instance, if you say you want to offer legal services, they would typically say, let one of your directors have the current certification. Sorry, legal. You must have been called to the Nigerian bar, at least one of your, or more even, because that's a professional service. If you say you're an engineer, you want to offer engineering service, they will want that one of your persons has, at least one has current certification. That's for the engineers and all of that. So those, at least that gives some first level regulation to say you have, you said you can do this and you have the competency to do this. At least you have the credentials to do this. So that comes with the CSC, and that's why you want to check the MEMAT, because if you notice, this certificate is just a certificate. It doesn't tell the story of the objects and all of that, in which case you see that in the memorandum of association. Then they will ask you for your directors. I bet some people will ask why. Of all the things that come with it, why ask for, in the past, it used to be called CO10 and CHC 2.1 or so. But these days, if you're registering the company in recent times, you find that it's in something they call, application is there. It's not exactly like that, but it has the credentials of the directors. And why does that become important for a company such in the oil and gas sector, for companies within the oil and gas sector? Is because, again, speaking to risk, you want to know who you're dealing with. And by knowing who you're dealing with, it doesn't just stop there. They go ahead to check you out in the EFCC watch list. That's your directors, because they can influence. Imagine that so an example. In the course of my career, I've seen something as simple as getting a house from leasing a property for an expatriate MD. So imagine he's there living in his house with his family. In the middle of the night, he's brought out in a foreign country and stranded on the road simply because that house is owned by someone that is compromised. So it's so important in the oil and gas sector. And that may seem like a very simple thing, but it has spiraling effects that can affect even the reputation. It can affect so many things. Financial, person can be exposed and then becomes kidnapped. The possibilities are endless. But the reputation is a big deal. So the question is then, why shouldn't they now check if the people I'm dealing with, say the vendor is someone that has been known to be chronically a debtor? Do you want to deal with somebody who has been compromised to that extent? And so maybe if a company gives out advance payments, is not properly used. So first thing is CSC. Second thing is MEMAT, which is memorandum and articles. The third is your director's credentials. They want to run checks on those. So that's in terms of regulation and status, right? So who are we dealing with? Then we go to sector type regulations. So if there's no way, DPR is now called NUPRC. You must get DPR certification. That's the second level, apart from CSC. When you have to be seen to when you go to register, say you want to do training, you offer training. These days, they would insist, DPR will insist that you get some certification from Ministry of Labor and Productivity. All these stop gaps are so that you posture properly, so that they can cover the field in saying, okay, you are competent to do this work. These days, there's even another layer. Again, the same thing that happened at CSC. They will ask you for certifications around HSE. HSE is health and safety. Health and safety is one of the biggest, most important aspects of oil and gas, because of the potential of risk that it brings, So we've talked about CSC, we've talked about MEMAT, we went all the way to the CO2, that's the credentials of the directors. That's still under regulation. So if you then cut it down, go down to sector specific, DPR, that's NUPRC, you must get that certification. They have 3 categories for oil and gas. They have the The first category, what do they call it now? There's a basic category, and then there is a major, and then there is a specialized. I think the first one, they've increased the prices right about now in recent times. But so for instance, if you have a business name, you're typically going to play within the field of the first and the second. You can't go to specialized, right? Specialized is, at your higher level, is, I mean, to get one certification now these days is almost, I think, about 300,000, and you need several for different. But my advice would be, if you want to, if you're an SME, start at the major. Stay within the rungs of the major with about 33,000 or thereabout. That's what it comes back to. And just get certification that you think is suited to what you can do. Sometimes it's better to enter, if this is an entry point for you, enter with procurement. It's not so high risk. It's just a matter of you managing your value chain to the end. So now we've said DPR. That's one of your most important. Now, to even be able to get DPR certification, you need to have had some other certification. So they want to make sure you have your tax clearance certificate. That's very important. You have your NSTIF, that's National Social, what do they call it? Industrial, what's it called? Trust Fund. So the idea is that you are remitting a certain percentage to the government on behalf of your staff and all of that. So you must get that certification. And because this is something that will be asked for by DPR. You want to also, you want to also have medical return. You want to ask a question? You want to say something?
Yes. So yes, thank you. I'm seeing some questions. Thank you, Ms. Wan. I'm seeing some questions on other steps that would also be required. So I am trying to see how we can, just push everything along, and how we can, just ensure that we are hitting all these questions that our participants are asking for. Rightly as Ms. Yes, very well. So I'm going to just be throwing some of the questions to the talking points to you, so that we are all, picking up on what would be required for us, and how we can also ensure that we are very reliable in the sector.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much.
I think also I'm going to drop a list of what is required, standard list. Perhaps we'll share with the participants so that it's not something you forget. But I'm just saying that if you stood up today, you said you wanted to be a vendor, you want to be sure of the things I've mentioned. When it comes to every sector, you would need to have had a CSC though. And the CSC comes with the MEMAT and the directors and all of that. So that's settled. And then when you go to financial, you need your tax clearance. You need to have registered your VAT and TIN. Your TIN is already on your CSC document, but you have to register it. Right. So these are the things you even take to the bank. For instance, you will need that to take to the bank to open a bank account, because they want to know that you own a bank account that they can transact with. So let's break it down to regulatory, and then now let's say personal. Let's call it personal. Let's call this one regulatory. Sorry, let's call this one financial. So you will need to have a letter from your bank saying that, oh, you've been banking with them. It's not any assurance that it's not any assurance other than the fact that you've been banking with them, or you do have an account with them. And I think that's for financial. And then technical competency, very, very important. Under technical, one of the main things for oil and gas, like I said earlier, is HSC, that's health, safety, environment. You need to have certifications around there. These days, they even ask for certifications. In the past, it was sufficient to have, it was sufficient to just have your policies, that you have a written down policy and signed by your head of business, written down policy for health and safety, for quality management, for community relations, which are almost always lumped within that health safety. Some people have a longer acronym to it, not just HSC. Right. So that you have all these policies, they're not very difficult. So don't mind the way I'm saying it can make it as difficult as can be, but if you put your mind to it, it's not that much. And it's something you get out of the way once and for all. So you posture on that note, you make sure you have all your policies in place, anti-bribery. These days, companies are asking for ESG. Yeah, they're asking for ESG. ESG means economic, social, and governance. Everywhere in the world now, there is talks about it. People want to know that you're posturing to do things better with the environment, that you're socially compliant, and that governance is a good thing for you. Under that, some people there's so many other policies under that. It depends on the company, but policies are not difficult to evolve, right? So you make sure you have all those policies. And resource, they want to see what's your resource list like. And by resource, I mean like who is at the helm of things, who do they report into, like an organogram, right? That kind of thing. Many companies ask for that. Is there something I'm leaving out? Their policies, there's all of that, resourcing, there's the financial part, there's the technical competence. Now, one other thing, but it doesn't come out at this stage. You need your company profile. That one is not difficult to do. You write out your profile. But one of the key, I'm saying generic things, then there are critical success factors, some of the critical success factors for you. Notice that I said if you come in, one of the easiest route to going through is through procuring. You need to have alliances with OEMs. OEMs are original equipment manufacturers. Most of them are outside the country. You want to have alliances with them. So and it's a matter of writing to them and meeting their obligations. Sometimes it may just also be helpful if you did some linkage. That's you partnered with someone who has it. I don't know if I'm not speaking to routes now, I'm speaking to the basics. So that is your basic list, which maybe I should have given it to the team so that they can display it. But I think it will be sent to you. I will send a comprehensive list. What you can do is for every place you go to companies, you may miss one or two or three ways, but the most of it is important. And if you have them, it gives you an advantage to at least even get registered. So that's in terms of registration. I don't know if there are any questions before I move to how you actually posture after all of this.
Thank you, Ms. Man. I think we are off to a very great start. I would want our guests, our participants to, note any of the questions that they'll be having on the chat so that we can be picking them up. Like we rightly said, it's a live interaction session. So the questions that you would be having, please just note them down in the chat and someone would pick them and add them to the ones that we've already selected. I think you delve rightly into what is required to, the checklist that would be required to be met as a key player, as someone who wants to play in the oil and gas sector. So to move us along in the right direction, I would be asking, now that you've registered into now that you've come into the oil and gas sector, you are now a player, you've done all the due diligence, you've ticked the right boxes, right? You would want to be a professional and understand the industry standards, right? So how, in doing so, how do we build the buyer's trust?
Okay. All right. So to build the buyer's trust, there's so many ways. We already know that imagine yourself, right? You have a business or you have something, and that thing is precious to you and it's very expensive. You want to be able to hand it to someone you know can handle it, because the loss of that thing will affect you so tremendously. So contracts, this is a sector that accounts to billions and billions and even trillions of dollars in annual turnover. And so you would imagine that the preference will be for people who are already what they call key players, strategic players. So what I would say is, for someone trying to build up, is how do I build up to a point where I'm not just a routine supplier, I am a strategic supplier. So this is how I would do it if I were the one. First of all, if I'm just entering the market, like I said, I will start with simple items. Procurement. I do it. There are certain fundamental supply chain principles, and companies have it all put in their supply chain manuals. The idea is that things must come in at the right price, at the right time, and in the best quality. So I will look to that. That would be, as a player, as someone who's trying to play within that field, I would make sure that those are my KPIs, whether I'm expressly told or not. Of course, the most part you would be expressly told in your contracts or purchase orders. That I want to be able to, for reputation, I want to be able to deliver this at the right price, competitive price, within the right timeline, and with the best quality. Those three things. So if those are your defaults, then there is no way you will not be able to start there. Because I guess for me, in the course of my career, what has made me trust one vendor over the other, and even offered opportunity that were beyond them because they were able to do small things well. And as is with every other thing, right, is the fact that one vendor comes in, he says, I can supply something as basic as valve, or even let's even look to household. And everybody comes in. Maybe some people think this is the opportunity to quote and have their quotes at 200% markup. Truth is, you're not going to be able to be competitive. There are other people who come in genuinely, they have a decent markup. They understand, okay, they will search this company. Do they pay on time? What's their payment terms like? What's my cost of funds? And then they calculate it properly and put a decent markup. And there are other buffers that person can put in to be able to ensure that they are not at loss, supposing the company falters. But in the first instance, this is my primary cost, and is well documented, is well arrived at. And to that extent, I stand a chance to be competitive, at least to be seen to be competitive. Then I now make sure that I go over and above to deliver on time, because people don't know that a schedule shift can cost you so much money. Let's say the company is at a critical time and they need something that you're supposed to deliver. And then you shift sometimes by even 2 weeks, even a day. Let me give you an example. There was, I think at the beginning of this year, we're supposed to have some pipes delivered. And then drilling was going on, and it was, at a very fast pace. So pipes are supposed to be delivered. It's supposed to be put in so that they can continue drilling with such intensity. And customs, the pipes were delivered at customs, were delayed at customs for an extra, 8 days. It impacted the company to the tune of $8.5 million. Because the truth is, unless you're not doing a business where you understand that this is the loss that has been occasioned when there is a breach of schedule. Sometimes these big companies go and get big money from banks or big money from organizations that can give money, and they're able to make projections. And your faltering can affect their own, and then they falter and it affects their financing. So there's a lot of play out in that. So basically what I'm saying is this: we want to make sure that, again, reiterating, we want to make sure that those things come in on time, that it's at the best price, and the quality is good. Right. So that's one way to posture. When you do that, you build up. And we have local content advantage now. If you deliver your first work the first time, tendency is that, and the thing is just even to gain entry. Once you do one job satisfactorily, many people are complacent. They want to just keep using you because you don't give them trouble. So your test is to your at least first 2 jobs, do it well in such a way that it's even you that will be turning down jobs. Because you are the default person. Oh, everybody is always a fast pace. Okay, let's call him or let's call her. Is a default. So and so that's what I would say. Start from there. What will make you preferable? Start from there and build good relations. Find out from the company, what can I do for you? Don't just be complacent and wait. Send in, okay, these are the new things I have. I can do this for you. I can do more for you or something. So you become a vendor of value. And I found companies who came in and did this kind of thing I'm saying. They now said they now came out to say, see, I can handle your construction. And everybody's scared. Construction, you know. And he's like, well, I can't. Just try me. And the person went ahead and said, okay, don't pay me. Now, there are many things. It doesn't have to be don't pay me upfront. Let me start this job if you're satisfied along the way. And if I finish it within this timeline, give me an incentive. Do you understand that? And that person went back with an incentive. So he came in, got funds from somewhere that was credible, started the job and gave the company comfort to say, don't even pay me before you think I'm trying to take your money and run. He does the job, he finishes, he also signs a deal to say, if I finish this job in record time, this is the timeline they give. If I finish it 2 weeks ahead of that time, I want you to be able to add another 2% to this cost or 5% to this cost. So he ended up with more money. And you know what that means? Next time is a no-brainer. But everybody, most of these companies is always, we're in a hurry, we're in a hurry. Everything is always in a hurry. So guess who they will call when they're in a hurry is you. So I guess I can stop here. There are many techniques, but this is it, if I would say.
Okay, I thank you so much. I think our participants are gaining insights. You've dropped some valuable gems along the line. Is for us to basically note this and see how we can improve, how our participants can improve themselves. Building professionalism, being competitive, gaining insights, and also gaining delivering on the right jobs, and not just taking jobs because you basically just want to take jobs, but like taking jobs and properly executing on those jobs. So this leads us to the next talking point. I believe our participants are gaining a lot of valuable insights. So now you've talked about professionalism and how you can, gain builders' trust, then buyers' trust, rather. When you've done that, now we are looking at building and sustaining your reputation in the industry, right? We've onboarded, right? We've checked, we've registered as the vendors. We've entered the industry. We are now delivering professionalism in our field. Now, the next thing for us would be, how can we build and sustain the reputation that we've created for ourselves? So what are some of the things that could, in the process of building this reputation, harm, what are some of the things that vendors can do that would harm the reputation of both suppliers and or buyers alike? When you've entered the field, you're doing some things and you don't know that you're harming yourself because these people have been in the industry for a long time, and or there are some certain things that they are looking out for that could either harm the reputation or of the suppliers or the buyers alike. So what are those things that we should watch out for?
So thank you, Chidera. So for the oil and gas, one very big deal, their risk. So one of the things that are done at the beginning of a project is to allocate risk, and typical ways of allocating risk are their financial risk, their legal risk, there's reputational risk, and these days there's governance risk. I don't know if I said legal, but there's legal, there's financial, there's reputational, and there are other list stuff. So one of them is host communities. Notice that there's no drilling without having host communities. You have to go to a community where oil was, and you want to be able to build a relationship. I think there is hardly any of us here, anybody that is above 21 on this call would have heard of Niger Delta issues or one of those issues that come around in oil and gas sectors. And it comes up from, hostile, or what people call hostile host communities, but sometimes they are grieved host communities. Now, a buyer, a client, a company, an oil and gas company does not want issues with his community. He does everything to make sure. One way that, and it's in your contract, there is hardly any standard contract used in oil and gas where they don't say, make sure you don't affect our community. How can you affect the community? Many ways. For instance, when you go into the field, you are moving through a path. So you want to have settled with your buyers to have what they call freedom to operate, right? That means the buyer, and I use buyer because that's the language here, the client, the company that is engaging the vendor, the supplier, if it's for a service, before you enter their site to do that service, and especially if it's in a host community, you would have had what they call freedom to operate. You want to make sure that that is in place, because otherwise, if you enter there and they stop you and there's all of that rancor and it results in a mess, it will affect everybody. It will especially affect the company. You also want, the company will also want to make sure, and that is why they will ask you at the beginning, show us your HSC, show us your modern slavery. That's a big deal now. Modern slavery policies. What does this entail? That the workers, say you are some the kind of work you're doing, you have to hire people to go and do that work at site. And then those your workers go there, maybe they are aggrieved, maybe they do things wrong, they fight other people, maybe they are not being paid properly. Maybe that, so for instance, if you're supplying a vehicle and you supply it along with a driver, if the driver drives continuously, there's certain timelines. You can't tell a normal human being to drive a car for 24 hours. It's outrageous, right? So that's seen as slavery. And if the man now, in the course of driving that thing, he falls or the car now has an accident, and they will always stress what they call a root cause, right? They will trace what they call a root cause. They take it back to the fact that, oh, this vendor was not even, maybe he was not even paid well, or he was driving for such a long time that he doesn't have brakes, normal brakes. It's as, by brakes, I don't mean brakes of vehicle. I mean taking time off. Something as simple as that can give you a very bad reputation. And then the regulators will come in and shut down your operations. And I've seen a lot of this happen. Or there was complacency that within the field where your people are working, there is a gate that fell on somebody. I've seen that happen in the most recent times. And then that person dies. It's a vendor that supplied somebody. The vendor comes in, maybe a vendor comes in to do a work. He doesn't follow safety protocols. I keep saying that's the biggest deal. Safety protocol, is he wearing a helmet? Is he wearing the PPE? PPEs are personal protective equipment. Now, if he's not wearing all of these things and something happens, that's a big deal. So in the oil and gas, I say again, and I'm not afraid to say this because it's important to get that part in, that health and safety is so important, and because it's so encompassing, you want to break it down, right, and own it. Now, there is something that the oil and gas does. You measure what you call your LTI, lost time injury. That is, how long have you been in the field to work without someone having an injury or an accident happening, someone dying. So it's a big deal. You see some companies celebrate 3 million man hours without LTI, and 5 million man hours. They actually give gifts or pay money or bonuses to their staff. It's a big deal. Now, they don't want a vendor come, because a vendor can come into your site and cause something like that to happen. So just to cut it short, to say, if someone asked me, how do I then make sure that I don't affect? I will say, make sure that your processes are right. Your people are following the processes. And it boils down to processes, really. And then just follow the rules of the contract. HAC, the way you interact with your host community, the quality of things you bring in is still under HSC, because you can bring in a substandard thing that then affects this. There's always a trace to a root cause, and that can cause a whole reputational issue, right? Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I thank you very much. We are getting feedback. We would want to also, move with because this is a very interactive session. So our participants are saying and they're asking. I mean, we've built a flow. We understand how it is for us to get registered. We know what it means for us to build reputation. We already know how to ensure that we are being professionals in the industry. So we would, as vendors, we always want to build, we always want to grow, right? So in building for growth, what tools and platforms should suppliers know or should they have to stay relevant in the oil and gas industry? And also, what trends are really shaping the future of oil and gas procurement and supplier collaboration? This would be very, very key for us to address. Knowing what we should have at the back of our mind, or as a business, what we should be looking at, or what tools we should be utilizing to stay relevant in the oil and gas industry, and also where and how we can understand what is shaping the future of oil and gas procurement for the suppliers.
Okay, so maybe Chidera, in doing this, I hope I get to answer the questions that are being here on this. Or do you want us to? I can marry all of it so that they don't lose train of thought. Because from these questions, I see, new entrants into the field of oil and gas, and so it's why they're asking. Right. Okay. So what do I answer? I will try and merge them all. Start
Yes,
from.
that would be good.
Yeah. Let me start from, so someone said, I spoke to procurement. What are the fields you can come in? They're quite various. Why I said procurement is that it's a bit low risk, right? Procurement is you go, much as you follow, you order for things. You need to know who are the manufacturers. There are many things you can supply in oil and gas. There are so many of them. In fact, if you go to DPR, just Google DPR, you'll see a list of the services and the procurement that are possible. I would typically, there are sectors like valves, like even personal PPEs, personal protective equipment. Try to enter through procurement and build muscle, so to say, right? Build muscle up. So I would say enter through that field and build muscle up, right? Services that can be offered, low-level services also are there. So for instance, before you go into offshore catering, for instance, you can start in field catering. That's a simpler, it's not a very, it may sound simple, but you want to make that food poisoning, there's so many things that can go wrong in a field. If anything goes wrong, it's a big deal, notice. So it's not going to be your standard food delivery service. There are protocols to it. So start with procurement. If I would say, if you have a service that your deliveries, you have, you can partner to deliver. Now, if someone wanted to start, this is what I always advise. There are companies that have been playing in this field. Apart from that procurement, which is easy, even with that procurement, try to partner with an existing company. And it doesn't take so much. Better to earn from sharing risk and cost than to wait to earn 100% and wait for so long. Right? Because what you also do is like you are getting acumen. It's like being an intern, right? So there are companies that have been around. There are the small players, the SMEs, they are the mid-sized companies, that are the high ends. You may not go to the high ends, you may go to the mid. Now, there are consultants that can help you identify and do a business linkage. All right. So that is possible. Or you can just research, go to Google, see people, try to write to them, tell them you can sign an MOU. What it means is that, let me tell you something that happens when you're evaluating the bid that you get. Some of the things you would find is that one of the main things is they will ask you for referral. Have you done this job before? If you are just entering, truth is you've not. But if you are in partnership with another company, and by partnership, I mean MOU, you have an MOU, just a simple MOU. The truth is that you are leveraging on this partner's competence. So you can actually quote 7 years in this field. I've done this job for 4 people. And why have you done? Because your partner has done this job for 4 people. I don't know if you understand that. So that is an entry strategy that almost always works. So I'm trying to see what else that was asked. Okay. Chidera, what was your question again, please?
So we basically were talking about how we can build for growth, right? In the oil and gas industry, basically just to say as players in the industry, what tools and what platforms, where should suppliers go to, to check how to stay
Register.
relevant
Okay.
in the industry? Exactly.
Right. So one of your fastest is NCDMB. That is Nigerian Content Development. Now, this is what we call local content. Just Google NCDMB. They have this database, right, that you can go to register. That database, they categorize people within. I think for me, what I would say is try and register in as many of these things as possible. There is NIPEX too. Well, NIPEX is a bit complex. They expect quite a number of things, but best believe that once you have these things, you won't be found wanting in any other areas. But I wouldn't say go straight to NIPEX. I would say go to NCDMB. Just Google it. Just write database NCDMB as a supplier. You will find that if you register under them, tendencies is that at least you are there. They're out there. People would notice you. NIPEX is another portal. Then even companies, you just go and register under those companies. Where can you play? I mean, what you do is either you have business development people or you are business development. So you keep asking, what are the opportunities? You need to keep sending solicitation mails to say, this is our capacity, or we've scaled up, we've merged with this, we are working with these people to produce this. That's how you stay relevant. I know that there are some sites where people go to check like Nigerian tenders and all of that. But I would just say, I mean, do that, but just make sure you're on the relevant platforms. Right. That's it for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, our amiable guest speaker, Ms. Wana. We appreciate so much knowledge and gems that you've dropped for us so far. We are seeing some of the feedbacks from our participants. Miss Catherine, we would say that, thank you for your feedback. I think we have addressed some of the key points that you've raised in your feedback. For us, it is very important that we were able to build growth and sustainability, right? We would start small and then you would also now grow from there. So, which is what we are laying. We are laying the ground rules for us to be successful and great vendors in the oil and gas space. So that means you would first of all, start small and then move up big. I think we would also address what trends are shaping the future of oil and gas procurement. I mean, because it is very important that as we are moving, we should understand that we are in a peculiar industry. We are in a very, very diverse industry, right? So it's very important for us to also move with the trend as the world is moving. Nigeria is also moving, so it's not that you'll be left behind. There are various ways and there are various products and various services you can render in the oil and gas space, right? So what trends are shaping the future of oil and gas procurement and supplier collaboration that we should be looking out for, that our suppliers should be looking out for? Yes.
Thanks, Chidera. I mean, I'll come to that, but let me just take 2 minutes to brush through what I'm seeing. So in cases when you don't have the right competencies to make a bid, and that's what we said, can I form a consortium? Yes. Yes, you can. And yes, you can. Always better to collaborate. I've said better to share risk with 2 or 3 people and share the wins with 2 or 3 people also than to lose and not have anything. So yes to a consortium. And then someone then said, so how do we then partner with companies? Do research. I said you can go through consultants who know, so that they do a business linkage with you, they can introduce you, or you just, Google helps. Just check companies within your way, the endeavors you want to take up, and you see them, you'll be able to reach out, send an email, make a call. A consultant is always better, it's always easier, but believe me, there's hardly anything people cannot do on their own, right? So you do that. And there's another one where someone said that he runs an oil and gas company that operates downstream. How can you go upstream? So I think, see, the oil and gas includes downstream, midstream, upstream. And the truth is that as heavy as regulation is in upstream, it's very similar to downstream. So I think if you're already operating in the downstream, it means you're largely competent. What can you do? You probably, there's no way you don't have your DPR certifications, no way you don't have certifications that allow you to lift and supply. What can you do? Go to the companies that are within the upstream and register with them. Offer your incentives. Like I talked about pricing. What makes, okay, so for instance, if people call for HEO, what are you going to do differently? First of all, you make sure you deliver. Notice I said 3 things. You deliver things at the right cost, within schedule, and the right quality. So if these 3 components are fulfilled, I don't know that you would have issues. So register with the companies you have interest in, and then offer them, what are the kinds of things that people can offer? Sometimes cost advantage, sometimes, okay, I can do this in record time. Sometimes let me deliver and get paid, of course, with buffers. So you're already on the right track. All you need to do is register with the various companies, I would say. That's this person that asked this particular question. And okay, so to Chidera, what you said, you asked the question about what are the trends, emerging trends. Okay, so let me start with technology. I think it's now seemingly oversung that everybody has to be technologically savvy. To the extent that your products or your services has a technological angle to it, in which case it makes people's lives easier. The truth is, there's no way you don't stand an advantage. And we're at an era where things are made more easy. Just with research and thinking, you are able to say, okay, what are the pain points here? How can I offer it in a faster way, in a more innovative way, and all of that? So the trends, I would say, technology. People are moving into the cleaner energy. Within the oil and gas, there's a lot of talk. In fact, just before, I think maybe 2024 is when they went back. It was quite scary that oil and gas itself was shaky because everybody seemed to have been moving to clean energy and clean energy only. But now we see we can survive. All can survive. We just want to do it neater. So emerging trends, we would include that to see, to the extent that you can say, I bring a more, how do I say it now? A cleaner or a more renewable type of energy to play or solution, you'll be well embraced. The last thing I would say is local content. We are at a time where local content plays to everyone's advantage. So you want to post in fact, in 2020, post 2020, that's post-COVID, we have seen that the local content have a lot of advantage because that was when we realized that we needed in-country expertise because supply chain disruption was at its worst, right? Because of course, everybody knew what was happening. You couldn't bring in things. Look at the Nigerian government itself. They couldn't bring in masks, face masks, because those things were imported. And what did they do? They started empowering the company, I think 2 companies to produce in masses within Nigeria. They just gave them the standards. It was glaring to all of us that there's capacity within the country and all we need is just to develop it. And so we're at a time now where if you come up with innovation, if you posture properly, there's a tendency that you'll be in fact, not noticed, you'll be seek for intervention. There are funds that have not been accessed. So we need to think. SMEs have more advantage now because of this ESG. ESG means don't just do the big players, big players, big players. Now the youths are supposed to have actual allocation. The women have actual allocation because everybody wants to see that there is a fair distribution of things. So it's the best time for small players to walk that whole staircase, stay where and become big players. I think that's a good place to stop there unless there's another question. That's I mean for that. Okay.
Thank you, Anna,
Yeah.
for that insight. I would agree with you that you've shed light on building for growth, and we understand that this can be achieved. However, I mean, these buildings for growth can't be achieved without adequate financing, right? Which is where we come in at vendor credit. So at vendor credit, we ensure that businesses keep moving, by providing tailored and flexible financial solutions within the custom of your business, right? So we ensure that you are not you're not being delayed with all the traditional hurdles that you would meet while trying to source funds to move the business, to build your business up to to the dream that you've envisioned it to be. So at Vendor Credit, once you can apply on our platform, once you apply on the platform, someone is going to drop the link to our app, right? You can download the app on Apple or Google Play Store. Then you go ahead to apply. The point is that we are ensuring that we would not say financing is the problem, right? At Vendor Credit, what we want to ensure is that you have access to the right funding to play in the supply chain industry. We are very intentional about providing consultative financing, right? Because all businesses are not the same, right? All businesses are not the same. Businesses are peculiar to their needs. So we would sit with you. We would provide custom financing to make sure that as key players in the oil and gas industry, you do not have funding issues. So just on the group chat, on the chat, right? Please just drop. We will drop our emails. We will drop our phone numbers. You can reach out to us. We are available for you every day. It doesn't take time for you to get these fundings in 48 hours to 72 hours. All things being equal, all processes being met, you would get your funding, right? So without wasting further time, we can also see that our participants are really asking questions. I know when you've seen on the group chat that they are asking a lot of questions. We've addressed a lot of them, but we also know that we will be looking at the ones that are very key, the ones that are also going to play, the ones that have also been repeated severally, so that we can take those points and then address them very critically well. So without wasting time, let's see. One of the questions that has been very frequent is, so now I have a question that we've gotten from our participants. How do I get to differentiate between the real sellers and buyers from fake ones? I think we've addressed that. Or do you want to also have a take on that?
Sorry, how do we differentiate between what? Sorry.
How do we differentiate between the real sellers and buyers from the fake ones?
Oh, okay. From the fake ones.
Mm.
Real sellers and buyers from the fake ones. The question is a bit tricky. I mean, do you mean that, do you mean that how do you differentiate? I think when you're talking about buyers, and that's why I was weary about the word buyers here. I would say the companies, the clients, they speak for themselves. They have their websites, they're well known. So typically in the oil and gas, you have what they call the IOCs, International Oil Companies. Then you have what they call the NOCs, that's the Nigerian oil companies. And they are quite, they are out there. Everyone should know, right? Or you can always do a research. You can always also run your own due diligence. For the oil and gas industry, believe that they do an extensive due diligence checks on those that are coming in to be suppliers before they even bring you on board. And even when they bring you on board for a particular service to scale through, there's a whole evaluation process. So when you have submitted, when they've called you to do bid and all of that, one thing that is possible is very nice that we're going to do a technical evaluation where we check your competency technically, and we'll now do a commercial evaluation. So all of this makes sure that we are not dealing with what you call fake. I would say maybe incompetent or even fake. So fake will not even be registered in the first instance. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, I think we are getting this is getting so much value. I think we want to just make sure that we can take in as much as we can take in within the very short time frame that we've had for this session. And I wish we could go on and on because I'm seeing a lot of questions. There is a question here that I think is quite important for us to address. And so the question is, also being a registered vendor doesn't guarantee you get jobs, because even when you quote at a very reasonable price, you still may not get the job because the person in charge has his own preferred vendor. You may go on and keep quoting and still end up not getting job to supply your products. Please, how do we handle buyers in situations like this and also prevent time wasting from such vendors?
So, I mean, fantastic question, because that is something that everybody, all the vendors, that's a pain point. The truth is that in Nigeria, I mean, in many places in the world, but in Nigeria, that factor always presents itself. That preference, that bias. It doesn't even matter that in all the standard procurement, what do I call it now? Procedure would insist. One of the objectives is that things must be done unbiased. There's always that human factor, and sometimes these days they even say Nigerian factor. So if you ask me, I would still say, okay, first of all, try to diversify. If I had to advise, diversify, register in the IOC. Some people worry about companies that do this, they have reputation. On the first note, there are companies that are generally seen to be fair. So register in IOCs, register in NOCs, and other ways you can do things better. Try to build competency. If you're a new player, like I said, no matter how cost effective you are, there's also the technical. Because you see, you may have the best price or what you call the best price, but there's something called total cost of ownership. And that's a whole long thing that it's not good to go into. There's so many reasons why, apart from the whole Nigerian factor thing, why you may not be picked. It's not always pricing. For instance, if they bring a risk map now and chat you in and do a technical and commercial chatting, you may find that even you with your best price, when they do it and trigger it along with the technical, that you may be the last in the group, because you may fail on technical. You may even get it right, like standard, you seem okay, but who are you playing with? Is why I'm saying sometimes collaborate. Sign MOUs with mid companies, if not the big ones, so that you present better. Keep doing what you do, but sign with that. That way, if it's not you that is being noticed, is another, because of the other company you are with. By the time they see that you actually did the work, the next time you're going to be preferred, the next time, because when you come in and do one job, there's a tendency that you build some level of rapport, so they know who is doing the job. So while there will be that factor, you have to keep playing at how do I even get noticed. My own cheat sheet is always make sure you get noticed by just even get the first job and do it well, right?
Thank you very much. I think we've answered most of the questions. There's a very, very I can see another question in wrapping this wonderful session that we've had so far. First, I would like to thank you, Ms. Wana, for your time. I want to thank you for the valuable insights. Someone is asking, how can we get access to financing credit and how to scale operations? How do we scale our operations? Another is asking, how could we enhance financial support to the oil and gas services? And do you offer a credit line amongst your services? I think so for us, we are here to support. We are here to offer you great financial services. Just reach out to us on the chat, reach out to us via email, reach out to us on the number that will be dropped on WhatsApp. We are here for you. We are here to address all your funding needs. We have, someone is asking what's the interest rate. We would discuss all that in once we begin to interact. Just send us a message, send us a text on WhatsApp. We would address every single one of your needs. Just right after this call, please. I would be waiting to even just pick them up from where you dropped, and we'll see how we can move forward. There is, yes, let me see. I think we have one more question. I think you've answered, how do you register and become a vendor and supplier in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria? What documents are needed to become a vendor? I think when you've answered that from the beginning, that was how you started the session that we've had today. What to do to become a registered vendor, and what to do to what documents are needed, and where you need to apply basically to play effect. But I think to summarize it, you can just look. I'm looking at the charts to see if there are any other peculiar questions that you would like to ask, and just answer.
Yeah, right. So I think all the others have answered. One that I've not, and I can use it to wrap up.
Yes.
Someone asked about legal risk and compliance, and for me, just to say that in oil and gas, non-compliance is not a small risk. It's actually an existential one. One violation can mean you are blacklisted. It's a big deal. So what are the risks? I've already talked about get your documents, your licenses, and there are many. It starts with DPR, follow the NOG, that's NOGIC Act. NOGIC is NCDMB. Try and make sure you work within that part of compliance on that note. Your contracts, try and understand them. No matter how ambiguous, make sure there are KPIs so that you know that when it boils down, what's the ball point? These are the things I must do, and I will have done it well. So once you can breach on those HSC risk, that's part of compliance. These days, since Nigeria signed the data protection law, that's another compliance. How are you handling your privacy? Now, they can seem enormous and quite a lot, but just get yourself on the right side, because otherwise it's a big deal. That question is a lot, a lot can be said about it, but just to see if they have put on, they said you need to have this, try and have them. Try and have them so that you can just appear as properly as can be. And just to wrap up by saying, of course, that, of course, I've seen that someone said with the industry's focus on, yeah, of course, vendors are expected to adopt technological, we've already said this, advancement to be able to do better. We talked about Internet of Things, AI, and blockchain. So I want to summarize by saying, no way we can in 1 hour talk about this and reach a meaningful conclusion, but it's a good start. So just be on the side of what are the, I said I would drop a document, a checklist that you can use, get registered, start to get registered within companies, get alliances together, and just start. All right.
Thank you. I would also want to just chime in and say on that legal aspect, that question is very, very critical, because you know that the oil and gas is a very, very is also, as unique as it is also a volatile industry. You have to ensure that you are adhering to safety rules, you are adhering to health, safety, and environment and protection rules that have been put in place. We are trying to ensure that there is no loss of man lives while operation is going on, because the oil and gas is a very, very volatile industry. So we have the gas flaring rules that has been put in place.
Yeah.
You have other rules that you have to meet, standard rules when you're supplying PPEs to the IOC, to the independent oil companies. So it's very important that as vendors, we keep ourselves abreast of the changes in the regulations and in the rules that apply in the oil and gas sector, so that you do not find yourself lacking on the side of compliance and legal. Because when you do that, the hammer comes down heavy on such a person. So I want to thank you so much. If there are any other questions, please put them down in the comment section. We would address them. We would get back to any one of you. An hour is not enough for us to dissect the oil and gas sector. This is something that has been bettered, and we know that it will come to stay. We would continue to always address questions that our communities will be reaching out to us. And when I want to thank you so much for your time. Please, our participants, if you've had a very lovely time, if you've had a very insightful time with us, please react on the chat. Tell us thank you. Tell us what you've learned. Tell Wana to anything you want to ask Wana, please reach out to us. We would always we are also going to find ways to bring her back to further address your points and see how we can keep building on what we've started. If there are any other feedbacks, we would also take them and we would also address them. Please reach out to us. Wana, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you. It's been a pleasure having and gaining from your insights. We are hoping that we will do this again, and we are definitely sure that we would also be bringing you back in. Please, thank you all. Thank you all for your time. Thank you, Wana. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. Do have a lovely day. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye. Bye, everyone.